The Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off a 9-8 season under Kenny Pickett and just barely missed the playoffs for the first time in 3 years. Coming into the offseason, the Steelers had a lot of work to do in order to cement themselves as one of the best teams in the AFC once again. Now, with Kenny Pickett getting another year of development and the offseason that Pittsburgh is having right now, I believe that they will shock the world next season. In this video, I'll be breaking down everything that the Steelers have added to their team so far, but what they need to target next in the draft in order to take another leap in 2023 and potentially make some noise next season. However, before we jump into the video, make sure you guys smash that like button. It helps out the channel so much, so let's even get the video up to 500 likes. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I will be covering the Steelers and the rest of the NFL all year long, so join the family. And one last thing, comment down below, who do you think is the most underrated player on this team right now? And also, who is one player you would love for the Steelers to draft here in just a few weeks? Without any further ado, let's jump right into today's video. Okay, so before we jump into who the Steelers are quietly looking into drafting here in the next couple of weeks, let's go ahead and take a look back at some of the signings that they've made to start free agency and how they've actually gone better from last season. Now, the one thing we can all agree on was the fact that heading into free agency, the one thing offensively that they needed to improve on was the offensive line. Other than that, the Steelers are in a very solid spot and pretty much just need to work on developing some skill players like guys like Calvin Austin, who personally I believe is going to shine next season for the Steelers, as well as George Pickens. When you look up and down this roster offensively, you see a bunch of receivers that look good. Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Calvin Austin. And then behind those guys, I do think they have some room to grow in that wide receiver room. Definitely probably look for them to draft someone here, which we'll talk about later on the video. Offensive line needs work. I love Najee Harris and Jalen Warren at the 1-2 spot. And then you got Pat Freiermuth, Zach Gentry as well, tight end, with Connor Hayward as a 3, and then Kenny Pickett just needs to develop. So when you really break down this offense, the one thing that they needed to do was address his offensive line. Now, the amazing news is that the Steelers absolutely killed it to start free agency, adding a couple of linemen that will drastically change the way this offense is, run from here on out. Now, there's 3 guys that they brought in. Now, the biggest splash addition that the Steelers made was signing former Philadelphia Eagles guard Isaac Seumalo. I don't know if that's how you say his name. Correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but they signed him to a 3-year deal. And the reason that this is a massive addition is because he will be a day 1 starter for this team going forward, and he'll be an immediate upgrade from last season. Also, another thing to note is last season, the Steelers offensive line ranked number 16 overall, which was already a massive upgrade from the previous season where they were one of the worst in the entire NFL. Last year, they were middle of the pack. This year, they're only getting better, getting more physicality, more depth. And the reason I say more depth is because they also signed guard Nate Herbig on a 2-year deal, and then shortly after that, they brought in a tackle in LaRaven Clark on a 1-year deal. Now, the reason why I like these 2 moves so much for the Steelers is because they add so much, needed depth and experience at the position. Like, they most likely won't come in to be day 1 starters, but what they will do is add competition at the very least with starting upside. Now, the reason I like this the most is because of that competition aspect. Now, the best thing you can do to an offensive line is make sure that your so-called starters don't think they're starters. Now, what I mean by this is when you have a lot of guys competing for the starting job, it makes everyone work harder, play harder, and just compete at a higher level because they want to be the best guy. Now, when you add so many guys who can come in and compete for that number 1 job, you're going to have the entire offensive line playing to their best abilities through mini camp, training camp, and preseason. They're going to be playing to their top ability. Now, obviously, you look at the O-line, you see a couple of guys that potentially will be starters in Isaac Seumalo, Cole Mason, James Daniels, and Chukwuma Okafor. But a couple of other guys have the potential to make themselves or make a names for themselves in this training camp, mini camp, preseason area, and they could definitely win a starting job here. Now, compared to when you have 5 bona fide starters, they won't compete as hard in practice just because they know nobody's behind them if that makes any sense. If that makes sense, let me know in the comment section. But overall, this offense looks pretty good. I mean, I love the 3 receivers they have. Like I said, we'll talk about what they can add later in the draft to make this a little bit better. So the offensive line is looking like it is improving, but again, there is some more they need to do. I love the tight end situation. The quarterback situation just needs development, and Najee and Jalen Warren are 2 of the best 1-2 punches in the NFL. Completely, I believe that they will be a force to be reckoned with another season of development. Now, this team has a ton of potential. Like I said, another offseason with Kenny Pickett under center should allow them to build the team chemistry, and we should see a major improvement around the entire offense. Defensively, the Steelers were actually very solid last year as well, and we knew coming into the offseason that the defense could drastically change with some big names leaving in free agency, especially guys like Devin Bush, Miles Jack, and Terrell Edmonds, as well as Cameron Sutton as well. But we knew right from day one the Steelers had a lot of holes to fill defensively. The Steelers front office actually did an amazing job filling out this roster throughout free agency, and there are 3 guys I really want to bring up quickly before we deep dive into who the Steelers are looking into drafting in 2023, this upcoming draft. But first, the first guy I want to bring up is newly acquired versatile safety, linebacker, safety, Keanu Neal. They signed him to a 2-year deal where he'll come in and play multiple different roles for this team going forward. And personally, I absolutely love this signing and think that the Steelers fans will fall in love with him the moment he steps onto the field in training camp, mini camp, preseason. I think fans will fall in love with his game. Now, the former Pro Bowl safety has rallied up 473 tackles, 328 solo, 2.5 sacks, 8 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, 20 passes deflected, and also 19.5 stuffs in his 7-year career. He might not be a day one starter, but he will be one of the best rotational pieces in the entire league for the Steelers, who can come in and just change the entire game for this defense. Also want to say that I love the addition of Patrick Peterson coming over here. We don't need to say much about Patrick Peterson because he is coming off a massive season. He's signing a 2-year deal with the Steelers, and last season he tallied up 66 tackles, 56 solo, 5 interceptions, as well as 15 passes defended. Patrick Peterson will come in right away. He's going to add experience, depth, a locker room leader, and an overall dog at the position, as well as someone who can help develop young guys, which will be extremely crucial for this team, which we'll talk about again later on in this video, so make sure you guys stick around. And lastly, the Steelers acquired a brand new linebacking core, letting go of Devin Bush and Miles Jack, adding a Landon Roberts and Cole Holcomb. Firstly, they brought in former Commander linebacker Cole Holcomb, who was a little bit injured last season and only played in about 7 games overall, but should be ready to go for 2023. Cole is still a young linebacker at 26 years old. In his 4-year career so far, he's rallied up 388 tackles, 239 solo, 4.5 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, and 3 interceptions. And then they also went out and signed former Miami Dolphins and New England Patriot linebacker Landon Roberts as well, who will come in here and be a day one starter for the most part unless they go out and draft someone. But both him and Cole are getting multi-year deals, Cole's being 3 years and Landon being 2 years. Now, Landon Roberts is coming off a career year, putting up 107 tackles, 68 solo, and 4.5 sacks for the Miami Dolphins. Now, both these guys are very versatile and will bring different types of, dynamic to this Steelers defense. Now, before we head into the good stuff, meaning the NFL draft, which is literally right around the corner, let's real quickly do me a favor, smash that like button if you're enjoying the video so far. Subscribe if you're new. I will be covering the rest of the NFL offseason, which includes the rest of free agency, the draft, whatever trades go down. I got you guys covered with all the breaking news, so make sure you guys turn on your post notifications so you're notified every time something goes down in the NFL. Okay, so far the Steelers have had a great free agency period, but with that being said, there is still so much work to do to make sure that they come out this draft with the best possible team heading into 2023. Now, in my opinion, there is 3 spots, maybe 4, that the Steelers need to look to address in this draft. And for me, those positions are cornerback, linebacker, nose tackle, and offensive line still could use some work. Now, for starters, you can't go wrong adding a top offensive line prospect that could end up being a franchise player for more than a decade. However, I do understand that that's not the flashiest thing in the world, and some fans would probably rather add a huge playmaker to the defense or even the offense. But when we take a look at some of the guys that the Steelers have been meeting with over the past couple of weeks, we see names that really stand out. Some of these names include guys like offensive tackle Broderick Jones, cornerback Christian Gonzalez, cornerback Emmanuel Forbes, cornerback Joey Porter Jr., nose tackle Siaki Ika, and a bunch more offensive linemen and some wide receivers as well. Now, to me, the one thing that stands out is they're meeting with a ton of DB, cornerbacks, and offensive linemen, which tells me that they're primarily going to focus on that position early in this draft. Now, to me, the best case scenario is adding Broderick Jones, Christian Gonzalez, or even Joey Porter Jr. in the first round. All three of these guys would be steals for the Steelers with their draft pick in the first round and would fit perfectly into this team. Now, Broderick Jones has the potential to be a dominant starter within 2 years of his career and was ranked the number 2 or the second best offensive lineman after the combine. If the Steelers land Jones, look for them to have the franchise tackle here for a very long time. From there's Joey Porter Jr. and Christian Gonzalez, some of the best cornerbacks in this entire draft, and would immediately be day one starters for this team in 2023, and they would be able to learn from one of the best corners in the last decade from Patrick Peterson. Now, with that being said, we can't ignore the fact that cornerback is still one of the Steelers' biggest holes in this roster, and I would be shocked if they didn't add a DB in the first 2 rounds of this draft. Now, Christian Gonzalez might be the best. He's a little bit more of a day one starter out the gate at 6'1", 197 pounds, ranking the overall best cornerback in this draft according to NFL.com. He's a rare cornerback that possesses a crazy mix of physicality, athleticism with top-end speed. In 2022, he ended with 50 tackles, 4 interceptions, and 7 pass deflections as well, or in 12 games. Lastly, I want to mention Trenton Simpson is also a name I would like to throw out there. Someone that they could target as well. They definitely need some young linebackers in the lineup, but I don't think there is a spot where they can pass up on, some other positions early in the draft. For me, I think they go either O-line, corner, or potentially nose tackle early in this draft, and then, hit some other positions like wide receiver, probably some more offensive line, and then linebacker as well. Probably in the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounds, they're going to probably hammer linebacker, wide receiver, and some more offensive line. But listen, there's some guys I really like, and when we look back at who they met with, I really like Broderick Jones, Christian Gonzalez, Emmanuel Forbes is incredible, and Joey Porter Jr., nose tackle Siaki Ika are also very good options for the Steelers to grab. So let me know what you guys think. Who do you guys want the Steelers to draft in this upcoming draft in just a couple of weeks? It is just around the corner. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new.